Hello and welcome to The Disclosure, the show where we bring you the latest and greatest in tech content for you. We have an awesome show planned for you today. We're going to be discussing the McDonald's breach and how over 60 million potential McDonald's employees had their data breached. We're going to dive into how a Doge employee leaked private keys for XAI private models. And we're going to discuss that with the researcher, Philippe Katrigeli, that actually discovered those keys, how he did that and what that means. We're also going to be looking into the discovery of 600 Laravel applications that were vulnerable to remote code execution with one of the researchers that found that, Rémy Matas. And best of all, I get to sit down with Wout, Debaenst, drink some sake, and talk about the future of AI pen testing in a segment that's definitely going to ruffle some feathers. So stay tuned for that. All right, let's get into the news. The headlines this week have really been dominated a little bit by McDonald's. McDonald's had a very serious data breach thanks to a third-party tool that they were using. Over 60 million employee candidates had their personal information along with chat logs leaked thanks to Paradox.ai. Now, Paradox.ai is essentially an AI chat company that has someone called Olivia. Olivia is not a person. Olivia is an AI bot. And Olivia does things like test candidates and does personality checks to see if they're viable for a McDonald's employee. And that's kind of like creepy in and of itself. Now, this is an area where the news headlines tended to get it all wrong this week and annoyed me a lot. I talked a little bit about this on my social media, but essentially the headlines were all claiming that this is because a weak password was used, 123456, and it kind of alludes to the fact that either McDonald's had a weak password on their account or that there was some super admin account from Paradox that had this password. But like a lot of things in security, when you actually dig a little bit deeper and you get into some nuance, it isn't just quite that straightforward. The researchers that discovered this were Ian Carroll and Sam Curry. Shout out to them if you're listening. And all they discovered that there was a test account that was created. This test account had the username 123456 and the password 123456, and it was really for a fake McDonald's restaurant. Now, this should have been the end of the story, as in not that interesting, because if you're in a fake McDonald's restaurant, there's obviously no sensitive information there, right? A little bit wrong. In walks Idor, and what they were able to do is manipulate an API call and basically change the ID. So let's say this fake restaurant had the ID 1, they made an API call to retrieve information for the restaurant with the ID 2, and it was accepted. Which means there wasn't the correct authorization to actually prevent people from moving into different areas, thanks for the insecure direct object referencing. So this is actually kind of the real story behind it. The media, of course, have just focused on this 123456 headline because kind of it makes everyone look dumb and a bit silly. But personally, I think an IDOR vulnerability inside your application is worse than using a weak password. And this doesn't appear to be the first time that Paradox.ai had some security issues, because out there in the wild internet, there's also some other pwned accounts with passwords of leaks from employees of Paradox.ai, I think in this case a dev, considering the login, that had their passwords leaked as well. And this time I will say that they weren't 123456. The passwords were significantly better. Another big security headline this week has been that a Doge employee and someone working for X as well exposed some secret keys for internal XAI models. Now, it's kind of interesting because there's actually a very, very similar breach that happened a while ago. But I'm not going to go into the detail of this. Instead, I just thought I'd bring with you the researcher that actually discovered this, how he discovered it, why it's significant, and what developers can do about it. All right, so I'm joined here by Philippe Katrigeli. Welcome, Philippe. I'm so glad to chat with you today.
Thank you for having me.
That's right. It's a running joke that we have is that I can't pronounce Philippe's last name, but he's told me that I'm getting closer and closer. So I'm going to take that as a win.
That's a win. Yeah.
But Philippe, recently some kind of news has come out and relates to research or at least investigations that you did about an XAI key that was leaked. This has been published in several publications at the moment, but not the least in Brian Kerb's blog. So maybe we just start with what actually happened here with this XAI key that was leaked.
Yeah, so that was I think on Sunday evening, but I got an alert on Monday morning that a key or a secret was potentially leaked by a developer. So I just got curious, looked at it. There was some things that were slightly interesting with this leak, is that the developer was not using a standard XAI key, so the format of the key was slightly different, which I suspect is the reason why it didn't trigger like 100 other alerts. I'm using Git Guardian, so I have some automated alerts and monitoring in place. And on Monday, I got a notification that a high entropy strings was being leaked, which is not necessarily a secret, but it's a indicator that it could be a secret. So that's a string that has a high complexity that doesn't look like a normal word that can be used in secret, but it doesn't match any known pattern as a secret, so it's not necessarily detected as 100% being a secret. Kind of like I think you were talking also in the podcast about the Laravel app keys, and that's kind of the same thing. When sometimes when you have a secret key in an app, they recommend you to use a random string, but not with a known format. So there's ways to try to detect it with a higher probability of false positive. So that requires some manual investigation. So that's really what happened here. A developer leaked this key. Luckily, the key was labeled as XAPI_API_key. So it was fairly easy to figure out what it was, even though the format was not the standard XAI dash and a base 64 key. And since I already reported some keys to them in the past, I already had some tools ready to test the key, so I just threw the key in the tool and realized that we had access to a bunch of stuff that we shouldn't have access to. So I reached out to the developer to let him know. Looks like he got my email because he fixed it, but he never responded or thanked us. So then it snowballed from here, and that's why I get a little bit more press coverage.
Yeah. So this is the key out there, that if you if a security researcher reaches out to you about a vulnerability, at least respond to them, because then the chances of it going to press are slightly smaller.
Yep, it's pretty much. Just a thank you would have been enough, but yeah. Anyway.
So, but you mentioned you had some tools from previous leaks here. We'll get into what this key gave access to in a minute. But what was the kind of previous leaks that we have? Why are we seeing such a problem with these XAI keys leaking out all over the place?
Yeah. So what's interesting is not so much the XAI key or anybody's XAI key being leaked. There's not much you can do with the a standard API key of a normal user. These keys that we're talking about, either back in May, I think Brian Krebs had another article, and these keys are internal developers' keys that have access to a lot more models and information than the standard user key. And unfortunately, they don't have any restrictions in place, so the developers are using the same interface and the same API endpoints. It's just that they have more access. So when we reported it back in May for the same incident, we were kind of talking about the good practice of, all right, if you have internal developers or if they have access to unreleased model, just give them like a special access. They should be able to access this API or this endpoint through a VPN or a special IP or different endpoints that is only accessible internally, rather than just putting it on the same endpoint as anybody else on the internet, because then all an attacker needs is this API key to start interacting with the internal models or things that are not shouldn't be publicly accessible.
Yeah, so we're really talking about kind of an admin access key from someone that's a developer that's working at XAI. And I think in this case they were a Doge employee, I think, as well.
Correct. Yeah, I suspect that's why it got a little bit more coverage. Yeah, and then what I was trying to highlight is the fact that we already reported something very similar back in May. Besides removing the key, they didn't change anything. So it's still exactly the same thing happened. They didn't put in place any safeguards for if they have developers making the same mistake, then restricting the access to this endpoint. They just removed the key, probably because it was talked about in the news, and then move on to something else. So they didn't really take it seriously, in my opinion.
Right. And what, in the reporting, that this key actually gave access to a whole bunch of different models, internal models and areas like that. This is kind of interesting, and I remember that I made some content around the last time that this happened. But what's the risk? What's the risk there for, let's say an attacker or just some malicious user actually getting access to all these internal models and areas? Yeah,
so there's a little bit of speculation, obviously, because we didn't try to hack into XAI with this key. We only used the key to confirm that it was a valid key and it gave us access to some internal models, but we didn't go much further. But the speculation is out of these 52 models that this key was giving, the previous key was giving access to about 30 different models. There are some models that are internal, that are labeled as Tesla or SpaceX, which we can assume that if they have models that are customized for these companies, they were trained with proprietary data from those companies. And then by doing some smart questions or interaction with the AI prompt, you can potentially force the AI to leak some information that it was trained on, which may not be public information. So it's not like any model or public model. The concern or what I was trying to highlight to them is more that you shouldn't expose internal models to anybody, because you can potentially leak some confidential information that the AI was trained on.
And I think too, what also strikes me as very concerning is that this was hard coded into a file. I mean, come on, you're dealing with sensitive information here. You're part of a government employee, you've got a government program that has a plethora of access. We don't need to get to the political debate of if Doge should have as much access to stuff as they do, right? But I mean, hard coding a key, really? We're still here.
Right. Yeah, I know. And ironically, so when I detected the key initially on Monday, the developer was still actively working on the project. I could see that there was regular commit throughout the day. Ironically, it looks like he was vibe coding an AI agent to assist AI coding. So if you look at the project, it's a project for AI assisting coding, but it looks like he was vibe coding doing it.
This is hilarious. That's right there, prompt and cursor. Cursor, create a version of cursor.
Pretty much. And ironically, as he was progressing through the day and doing his vibe coding, he probably realized at some point that the key was in the code, and he did another commit to delete the key. Unfortunately, he didn't delete all his commit history, so it made it worse because now the key was actually in several commits, and that's when I emailed him know that, hey, your key may not be in the master, but it's still in all the other commits, and you may want to remove all this and cycle the key. Obviously, they got my email because not even 5 minutes later, all the commits were removed. They scratched the project and restarted from scratch. But they didn't revoke the key. So the next day, the key was still working. And as Brian Krebs published his article, the key was still valid. It is not valid anymore. So I guess he read the article somehow.
This kind of gets worse and worse and worse. I mean, this is it's classic because I think what people the knee-jerk reaction from a lot of people that I guess don't have in-depth is oh, I'm just going to remove that key and push another commit. But the diff exposes the key again. So if anyone missed it the first time, they're going to catch it on the second time because now it's propagated even further. Not to mention the fact that Git history pretty much lives forever. And I don't know if you have dealt with the fun of trying to rewrite Git history, but it especially in a team,
I think the easiest was to wipe the whole repo and then start from scratch, which is what he did. But yeah, that's so. And again, this is a mistake that happens. I don't want to necessarily blame the developer for it. It's more that XAI, after us reporting the same incident 2 months ago, should have taken it seriously and have some slightly more restrictions for their internal developers.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Philippe, thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing this research. I hope to have you back. You always seem to find interesting things, so I'm sure we'll have you back on the show again. But thanks again for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
The final news segment that I want to get into today is that 600 Laravel applications were vulnerable to remote code execution when using keys discovered in public GitHub repositories. And this one's kind of interesting because leaked API keys is one thing, but actually being able to effectively use them and match them up in the wild is quite difficult. Now, this one here is actually quite a technical. So I wanted to bring in one of the researchers themselves that actually discovered this to try and break down the technical nuances of how this, because it's not quite as easy as discovering a Laravel app key and then immediately being able to use it. In fact, there's quite a lot that goes in between that. So without further ado, let's bring on Rémy Matas to actually walk through exactly what they did here. So Rémy, welcome and thanks so much for joining me on the show today.
Hi, nice to meet you.
So you're a security researcher. Do you want to just give a quick introduction about who you are and some of the interesting things that you've been working on?
Yeah, so hello everyone. I'm Rémy Matas. I'm working for Synactive. It's been like 4 years right now. I'm mostly working on stuff related to PHP and its frameworks. So today we are going to talk about Laravel, but I also worked on other stuff like PHP filter chains or this kind of subjects.
Just for those that maybe aren't aware, maybe we can just give a quick introduction about like what exactly Laravel apps are and what the framework's used for.
So Laravel is one of the most used frameworks worldly. So right now there is like something more than 1 million public applications based on it. It's really useful in order to create application quickly because you've got some ORM, you've got all you need in order to create applications from e-commerce, CRM, or other stuff like that. So you've got a ton of tools and plugins with a really active public community. So it's really easy to start developing by using Laravel if you're a PHP developer.
We're going to be talking about the app key that's actually kind of built into Laravel. And I think a lot of frameworks have a key like this. But let's start off with exactly what is that app key in there, and then we're going to talk about kind of some of the interesting things that you were able to find with this. But what is that app key that your research focused around?
So the app key is one of the main secrets that is embedded inside the .env files in Laravel applications. It's used to anything related to cryptography. For example, if you need some data integrity checks with hashmark or something like that, it is usually used for that. You can also see that it is used when you are doing some ciphers with Laravel, and it's used to anything related to integrity or cryptography inside the Laravel environment.
These keys are kind of can definitely be quite sensitive, and we'll get into that. But one of the crazy things in there is that you were able to find huge amounts of these keys in public GitHub repositories. I think 260,000 in total. So let's start with how on earth you managed to to do that, and how you were able to kind of find those keys.
It all started when we were trying to do business ourselves. First of all, we tried to do some Google Docs, some GitHub Docs. We also searched inside the Laravel documentation itself because it's not well known, but there was a default app key in really older Laravel applications, which was some random string. It changed a few years ago, and now any app key on a Laravel application is generated, and it's 32 long bytes random string, which is base 64 encoded. And so it's not really possible to guess it. You need to have it or to have a really big mistake made by developers in order to get your hands on it. So that's why we try to see if there were some public common app keys leaking publicly. We met with Guillaume Valadon, which is working for Git Guardian, which saw what we had to present. During that time, we only started the project. We found 3 CVs on really big Laravel projects, but it was really the premise, the start of it. And he kindly said to us, do you want more app keys? And of course, as you guessed, we said, yes, why not? That could be interesting. Because they were so interested in ways to detect when an app key is leaked on GitHub. And we were also interested in getting our hands on it in order to push our research even further. And so a few weeks later, they just sent out a big TXT file containing 200,000 app keys, something like that. And so, yeah.
Let's talk about like what happens when these app keys now leak. So now you've got your hands on like 260,000 of these keys. Are they all sensitive? Is it all like is it all critical? Like because what's really interesting about your research is kind of you were able to go to the next step and actually kind of, I guess, prove impact. But were all of these keys kind of sensitive? Like what happened going to the next step of actually discovering?
So getting your hands on app keys is one thing, and as I said, it's a random string. You can't really know what it's linked to by default. So you need to, make connections to understand where it's used. So there are two ways to do that. You can try to, with docs, as I said, with GitHub or Google, you can try to see what projects are using these app keys, but it's not really efficient. We found another way to be sure what they are linked to. And this way is to leak some Laravel ciphers on public projects. The way Laravel works, in fact, is that cookies are Laravel ciphers by default. So if you get some Laravel cookies from public applications, you can try to brute force the cipher you get. And as we saw, we had 260,000 app keys. So we just needed ciphers. So what we did is that we tried to browse on Showdown, which is a platform indexing the internet and getting information about publicly exposed IPs. And so by default, Laravel will kindly send you cookies, which has Laravel ciphers. So we just made a little Showdown research, and we leaked 600k XSRF token, which is Laravel default CSRF token. And so we could just get 600 Laravel ciphers this way from as much public projects as that. So it was quite easy to do, but I don't think there were really other research basing their statistics or doing this kind of stuff on Laravel.
Super interesting. And you guys actually built an open source tool that I think researchers, as you said, like researchers haven't really done this, but now that you've actually built something that I think it's going to help the community kind of expand on this, I guess. And so you built Laravel CryptoKiller. So can you explain kind of like what this tool did and how it's going to kind of help there, I guess, in the future, or help you in to do more research?
So we built a tool, Laravel CryptoKiller, as you said, which allows you to cipher data when you have a Laravel app key, to decrypt it if you found a Laravel cipher in any ways. But also there is another mode on this tool, which is brute force mode. And in fact, you just put a list of app keys and it will try to brute force each value on your cipher.
Do you have any advice then for people that are building and maintaining Laravel applications?
By default, on Laravel, when you are creating your project and starting to work on, there won't be any default app keys. So by default, you are secure, in fact, because what is an app key? It's 32 long bytes randomly generated. So good luck to try to crack that. You can optimize as much as you want with Rust or anything else. You won't be able to brute force it in a lifetime, because it's based on AES 256 in CBC mode, which is a secured mode. So good luck with that. So by default, in fact, you are secured. What we identified when we done our research is that people tend to reuse the same app key everywhere. So imagine you are using it on a development environment. You might be able to leak it because it's less secured in many ways. Also, we identified that on public projects like Snipe IT, Invoice Ninja, Creator, which was the 3 projects we identified CVs on, they had default app keys, which led us to identify ways to get remote command execution in an unauthenticated way on any of these platforms because they had some default app keys and they were using the default decrypt from Laravel. And also, when you sell products which are based on Laravel, you want that the project works fine, and in many cases, they did not rebuild a new app key. So there are many Code Canyon applications, which is a selling base, which is quite famous. And most of the time they don't really rebuild a new app key on their projects when they are selling. So that's the most common ways to leak your app key when you are doing public stuff or selling stuff. just rebuild it by default where you are installing your Laravel application.
Well, Rémy, I want to thank you so much for coming. Now, I do want to mention here that you're actually going and you're doing a presentation at NILCon, and I want to just to maybe give a quick shout out to what your presentation and your research is actually going to be about, and if people are in Berlin, if they should head there. So, what are you presenting at NILCon?
So yeah, we saw that in most cases you won't be affected when an app key leaks. We still digged in other projects what we could do when you have your hands on app keys. And so we identified a way to get remote command execution when you are using Livewire inside your Laravel project. You can see us during NerdCon. So it's the first week of September in Berlin. So see you there if you like.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much, Rémy, and hopefully I'll be able to get to Berlin to NILCon, and if so, I'll definitely be in the front row. So thanks again for joining the show. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks to you for having me during the show,
And now, of course, it's time for my favorite part of the show, where I get to sit down with a security leader and drink sake and ask them questions. Today's one's really interesting. We brought onto the show Wout Debaenst, who is actually one of the founders of AllSeek, which is a company that's exploring AI pen testing. And it's really cutting edge, but it's going to ruffle a lot of feathers. I'm going to say pretty much wholeheartedly that this is going to light up the comment section a bit of people disagreeing. But it's really interesting to see where we're heading in this section. So, without further ado, let's go down to me drinking some sake with Wout Debaenst. All right, so welcome, Wout. I'm so glad to have you here. We're going to enjoy some sake. We're going to talk about security. It's going to be a great time. So first we have our first sake. So this is non-alcoholic sake, which I didn't know existed until yesterday.
Yeah, me neither.
And this is from the Nara region in Japan, which apparently is famous for its full-bodied richness. So interesting fun fact. Give it a go.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers. This is good.
I'm quite surprised.
Yeah. Like I didn't know what to expect, but this is actually really good.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's start off. So you obviously have a long history in security, in particular kind of pen testing, offensive security. But how did you actually get started in security itself? What got you curious about it?
Yeah, I think it's a bit like the bit more classical story of like the hacker starting as a child. So I think as a child I was always like busy with computers. There was something that really interested me, and especially like I had a Wii, and like I was really like focused on trying to do things with the Wii that I normally shouldn't be able to do. But you need to know, like at my parents' place, the Wii was like 3 stories up. The computer that we had was like down, and we couldn't really go back and forth. So I was like constantly, like the whole afternoon, just looking something up on the computer, running up to the Wii, trying it out. It didn't work. Go back down, Googling again. So this way, like as a child, I could keep myself busy forever.
So you were fit.
I was fit. Just going back and forth all the time.
Sure. How did you get into actual pen testing and to like understand how you got into security? But how did you go into the offensive side?
So yeah, as I was always busy with it as a child, it was like always this idea of I want to become a hacker. And so it's been always like in the back of my mind. And then when I went to university, like at the end, I would have to think like, okay, what do I want to do as a job? And that thought came back to me like from the get-go, like I want to become a hacker. So I was like really researching like how do I get into this field, how do I do this, and this is actually how then I got into contact with EY in the Netherlands, and they wanted to offer me like a job to start and learn there as a professional pen tester. So I moved everything I had, went to the Netherlands, lived there for 2 years, and then this is how I got into my first role as a pen tester.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's one of the few good stories I've heard from like kind of going into EY.
True.
Not that I want to make any enemies with EY. So one of the areas why I really wanted to bring you here today is the work that you've been doing in building out a startup in AI pen testing. So conducting offensive pen tests, but using AI, I guess, as software. So how does that work? Let's start there. Like, how does an AI pen test start and happen?
An AI pen test actually starts very much the same way as a regular hacker would work. So especially now with the rise of agentic AI, you can make like these very separate agents which each specialize in one specific task. And each specific task is a task that a regular pen tester would normally do. For example, map out the whole infrastructure, see all the endpoints. So that agent has on like their own task, and then it would move the task once it's finished to another agent who has done like the next thing. For example, try to find some injection points, for example. And this way you have like a whole network of agents who collaborate together in order to mimic the process of a real hacker on an application or an infrastructure.
So these agents are kind of like, you kind of like have a team.
Yeah.
A team of hackers.
Exactly.
Right? And an agent is, and you kind of almost as if it is like with real pen testing, you have people that have specializations.
Yeah.
So these agents have specializations in specific vulnerabilities that they're trying to find, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So one question I have at the moment that I know is going to light up the comment section, but we've been talking about these AI style pen tests, kind of producing it as like a software service. Will this replace human pen tests? And if so, why or why not? But will it completely replace it? Will it partially replace it? What will happen in the future? You know, I kind of want to say like 10 years, but I think even just 5 years in AI world is kind of a lifetime. So in 5 years' time, are we still doing human pen tests?
Mm-hmm. Good one. It's one that I've also been thinking about like a lot recently, because like everything is going so fast. Like where will we be in the next years? And I think where we will land is that pen testing will be almost like 95 to 98% be done through AI, because like everything we do as a hacker is a lot of repetitive tasks that can be completely automated. Even the more creative tasks can be automated. And for most of the companies, that will already be sufficient to get their pen test checkbox marked and have like the full value of a pen test. I think like the 1 or 2% that was still left is for the companies who actually need that a little bit more, that have like a low risk appetite. For example, banks, they probably will always want that extra little bit more. So I think for them, humans will still come into the loop, especially to test the more creative bugs that are like tougher to automate with AI.
So you mentioned creativity.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask you a question about creativity, because you know at some point all of the vulnerabilities that we know about, IDOR, cross-site scripting, SQL injection, they were all invented, well not invented, but discovered by humans. So are we going to have blind spots? Like you're training these agentic agents on specific tasks, but those tasks were all discovered, found by humans. So will we have blind spots?
That's a very good question, actually, because like indeed there might be a blind spot somewhere, but if we look at like what the industry right now looks like, almost all different kind of vulnerabilities are already identified. So it will, like, I don't think AI will invent like new categories of vulnerabilities, but even nowadays with humans, a new category of vulnerability is almost never found again. Now with LLMs, there is a new category like prompt injection, for example, but that's as the technology progresses. But yeah, so I think the blind spots itself will be like very, very limited, just because like humans are very slow in finding new vulnerability types as well.
How do you train these agentic agents then? Right? What's the process? Do you know, like, is it? I know we're not, but I'm going to say it facetiously. Are we sending out just OpenAI, look for cross-site scripting? You know, like how are we training these models?
Well, I think like if you say training these models, we need to be a bit careful, because we are not in the traditional way of training models, of our machine learning models. We will not be providing them like a huge test set, provide them like ones that we know already labeled, like this is good. And then we will have another test set to say, okay, this is like, how does it respond now on what we know? That's not really how we're going to work with LLMs. So what we basically do is with each of these agents, we're going to provide them a specific prompt that says like step by step what they need to check. For example, for a path traversal, we can say, okay, if you find this kind of pattern, go and try this, and this. And if you've come across this kind of protection, then you need to try this. So this is like the step-by-step approach that a hacker would take in order to go through it fully. And this needs to be optimized. And like the tough thing is not necessarily creating the prompts. The tough thing about these agentic systems is actually like getting it to be consistent. And in order to be consistent, you need like a huge benchmark to see, okay, with this small change in the prompt, am I still getting the same results or not? And that's something that we're seeing as well, like just a small change that for us feels like it shouldn't matter has like a huge effect on the results on the benchmark. So agentic systems is like almost more the benchmark that needs to be like very, very, very good before you like that needs to be better than the agentic system itself, just to make sure you've got consistent results all the time. Yeah.
I feel like I'm grilling you here because I'm really interested and I'm like fascinated by this whole system. So don't take this negatively. But when you talk about it through like the step-by-step processes that an attacker would take, and we're getting agentic models to do that, I understand that. But isn't that the same as kind of traditional DAST type scanning or API scanning, where we have a step-by-step payload that we discover API endpoints, we send a step-by-step payload to it. Look at the results. How is that different than what you're describing with agentic models?
Yeah. So first of all, like the DAST and stuff, I'm not really a big fan of it. Like in my opinion, it like every time when I came across it, it was so bad at finding things because it just sends something. It looks at the response if it has like a certain pattern it expects, and then it just stops there. And while with agentic system, what it will do is it will inject something, see how the response, and then based on that, it will make assumptions. Okay, it looks like there's URL encoding active. Maybe I should try this payload. Right. Okay, now I see it reacts in this way. We're already a step closer. Let's alter the payload a little bit more again to see, okay, this comes in.
Got it.
And this way, like an agentic system is a lot more accurate because like it doesn't just have like this pattern, it actually sees the context of what is going around it, and it just doesn't alert on all these false positives. And in my opinion, DAST is like so many false positives.
I feel like I'm bringing up some trauma. Yeah. I get it now, and that makes so much sense because it's kind of like saying, here's the response or here's the error message, and we can go, let's be creative. We're not just sending a payload going, that didn't give us a token, or that didn't give us access, or so move on to the next thing. We can actually go, it didn't give us a token, but it did give us this syntax error, which may indicate that actually there's something deeper going on down below.
Yeah, especially the context. Like that's the huge things that these LLMs bring to the table, and like the context that they can interpret and react based on that, it's huge, and it's really what's enabling this new kind of field in cybersecurity. I shouldn't forget to drink.
We have a different type of sake now. So this one's from Kyoto in Japan. Again, also non-alcoholic. I'm not sure what the differences are, but we're going to see if we can tell. So to the next one. Cheers.
Cheers.
Still good.
No.
Very similar.
Here I was already thinking, like, I prefer the last one better.
Okay, look, it's the first episode. My sake palate isn't developed yet. I can't tell the distinct notes between different sakes, all right?
Nice.
All right. Okay, I want to flip it up right now because we talked about AI for defense, AI for like pen testing, areas like that. Wouldn't this also create the exact equal effect on the opposite side? So like, are we seeing, there's a term, script kiddies. It's someone that's like not a sophisticated hacker, but is able to run, bash commands from Google or use hacking tools to get into access into stuff, aka me. Are we seeing the next generation of script kiddies by able to use these kind of AI agents for evil? And what's that dynamic going to look like in your opinion?
Yeah, definitely. Like in general, like if these AI agents get like mass adoption and it's available for everyone, it's definitely going to bring a huge shift on how script kiddies, what they are capable of. Like they don't like imagine like as a script kiddie in the beginning, you can run a tool like Nmap and you're like, oh my God, I'm hacking. Yeah. Let alone the feeling of this system is hacking for me and doing the actual hacking. I think there will be huge uprise in like the amount of hacks that will come up. But also, like, this will change. Like, if they have access to these kind of systems, that means that all the companies can also have access to these kind of systems. So, like, I think it will again be like this cat and mouse game that will keep on developing. Like, this field might then make like that, like this catching up, but the defense will also catch up quick.
Right.
Like, I don't think like it will be huge imbalance for long.
You mentioned Nmap, right?
Yeah.
You described my first experience.
Yeah.
using Nmap. Like, oh my god, I'm a hacker. Where's my hoodie?
I found a port. Oh my god.
Yeah. What is a port?
Port 80. How do I hack?
Yeah. So I have a game that I want to do today. It's called Would You Rather, and it's pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to give you two options, and you're going to pick which of those options you would prefer to do. Now, we're going to refill our sake here because we need motivation for this next game here.
Perfect.
This is, just in case you're wondering, this is the same one as last time. In case you're curious.
Busted.
All right. Okay. Would you rather have all your credentials stored in a .env file in your Git repository, or never be able to update your dependencies?
Definitely the first.
The first?
The end variables there, like, because if I can't update my dependencies, then if I have a web application running outside, then I'm just fucked anyway.
Okay, I would. You know what? I would have thought environment variables, but I understand. I understand it.
It's like, as long as it's in a Git repository, there is like still a line of defense, kinda.
Yeah,
if it's private.
But I mean, that's number one. That's the first thing your agentic models are going to be trying to do. Is there exposed.git directory somewhere there?
Exactly. Like, but like, if I have to choose one,
okay, yeah,
it's like, definitely update your dependencies.
All right,
oh my god.
Right. Would you rather have no MFA on your internal infrastructure or no firewall?
I think the no firewall again, for the same reason as the end variables, because like, you can't hack what you can't reach. If I wouldn't have a firewall and all my data would just be like, all my ports would be open to the internet. No, definitely no firewall.
No firewall. All right. Would you rather have no security scanning in your application, or only be able to deploy to production, no staging environment?
Ooh.
I've got him.
Yeah.
Got him on this one. The other ones were easy. But this one you're stumped on.
Yeah, like, I'm thinking, like, as a I wouldn't want my production environment to be down, but I also don't want it to be vulnerable. I think risk-wise, I would choose for like no staging.
Staging and go security scanning.
Like, I would like security scanning, but like a good one.
Right.
If it's like just a general low budget scanning, then no thank you. But like, if I would have like proper scanning on there, I think I would take the risk of no staging.
I feel like this is like the perfect segue to talk about the sponsor of this, which is security scanning, which is better than not having a staging environment.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show, drinking sake with me. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
0% sake, surprisingly good. Surprisingly fire.
You should get them as a sponsor next time.
I should get them as a sponsor next time. I don't even know what one it's called, but we'll figure it out. But until next time, I'll see you later.
See you next time.
I hope you enjoyed that episode today. We're trying to bring you high quality, engaging content here at the Disclosure Show. So please like this video, subscribe to the channel. It helps us more than you know. And if you're feeling like it, also tell a friend about us. We'd really appreciate it. Well, I hope to see you on the next episode next week. And until then, have a great day and stay safe.